Hi gang. Before I start giving out my opinions on the works of Agnès Varda, I should probably apologise for mispronunciation and my butchering of the French language. Without further ado then, I started with what is probably the most famous Varda film to ease me and you, my humble viewers, in. Cleo from 5 to 7 is a movie told in almost real time as it follows Cleo between the hours of 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. after she has visited a tarot card reader. Throughout the film, Cleo has many encounters with different people of various backgrounds in relation to Cleo, an up-and-coming pop star. Corinne Marchand plays Cleo beautifully, injecting her with a sense of impending panic around a forthcoming hospital test result. She seems at a loss for control and wanders seemingly as if in a dream. The scenes are beautifully shot in black and white. Every new location or character introduced with a chapter and an accompanying clock which helps emphasize the panic. The ticking time bomb to ours and Cleo's deadline. A particular favourite shot of mine holds Cleo seen tiny amidst a warehouse-like apartment, and she says, "I'm suffocating." It's typical tongue-in-cheek from Varda. It's arguably her most famous film, definitely a great introduction to cinema of the French New Wave. We go even further back now, to La Pointe Courte, both Varda's first film, and it has been argued that it's the first film of the French New Wave era. There are two storylines that don't really intersect in a narrative sense. One about fishermen being investigated by health and safety officials, and one that I found more interesting, about a couple trying to decide if they should stay together or not, after the husband had cheated and the wife had tried to cheat. Originally, Varda had only intended to visit the non-fictional La Pointe Courte, a small part of a town in Set, to take photographs, which from the shot composition is quite obvious. Every frame is captured perfectly, and whilst not as empowering or as effective as some of her later work, a strong start to what obviously became an illustrious career. From the beginnings of Agnès Varda's career to the end, her final full-length feature, directed alongside photographer J.R., Faces Places is an incredibly moving documentary about the two filmmakers. Together they travel through villages, photographing locals and putting pictures up on bare spaces of a great size. Whilst the relationship between the two seems originally as awkward as it would between a 90-year-old woman and someone 60 years her junior meeting for the first time, the thaw lifts very quickly and they become unlikely friends. Both are creatives through and through, but JR's knack of taking himself a little too seriously is put a stop to very quickly by Varda's playful personality and attitude to both him and the fact that he never takes off his sunglasses. I can't really do it justice in discussion here, but it's a beautiful film, made ever more poignant knowing that only 2 years later the world would lose one of its best and become a much sadder place. A happily married man called Francois decides to begin an affair with the clerk at his local post office in Le Bonheur. It means happiness in French, and on first glance, Francois's life seems idyllic. He has a loving wife and 2 cute children, but all is not as it seems. It's a good film, enjoyable, and keeps the audience guessing. As is typical for other films of Varda's I've reviewed, its themes include the difficulties within the paradigms of love and the trouble with falling in love too quickly. The opening and closing shot mirror each other perfectly and are good bookends for the story. Varda uses colour well here and seems to give each character a unique colour and flower to be associated with, often signifying their presence in scenes they aren't even in. We're pushed hard to find a villain in the story, even though it should be obvious, and all the characters seem to believe their own agendas. No one is to blame here for what eventually happens, but after all, is it only the children we feel really sorry for? Agnès Varda combines playing with a new piece of kit and creating discourse on consumerism for her 2000 documentary The Gleaners and I. Inspired by a painting by Jean-François Millet, Varda talks to gleaners, people who freely take food after farmers have chosen the best of the crop. This sets the tone of the documentary, and throughout the rest of the film, Varda muses on the wasting of food, what the law says in regards to gleaning and picking, and in a particular favourite sequence of mine, leaves her new camera running and lets the viewer enjoy the dance of the lens cap in all its glory. It's an informative film, maybe reminding me of the 90s television show Come Outside a little too much, but with Varda's charm and the quirkiness of the vast majority of the people interviewed, manages to maintain attention for its little 80-minute runtime. Worth a watch, but only to Varda aficionados trying to complete the director's IMDb. Thanks for watching my hipster presentation on Agnès Varda. Watch more French New Wave cinema.